This is exactly what I'm talking about. A great original film and concept with a phenomenal director, with a stellar cast. I hope these other companies have taken notes. Disney, excuse me. Because this is exactly what Hollywood's needed. Let's get into it.
You keep dancing with the devil. One day he's gonna follow you home.
What is going on, everybody? It is yours truly, the Ace, here with my review to Sinners, the movie that everybody's been ranting and raving about. So you know I had to give my thoughts, but I want to hear yours. Hit that comment section and let me know what you thought about this movie. Also, what's your favorite vampire movie? And also, what is your favorite Ryan Coogler movie? I would love to know. This is the movie that everybody's been talking about, so let's get into it. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I am a huge fan of Ryan Coogler. He is one of my favorite filmmakers. Black Panther is obviously such an iconic movie. Wakanda Forever, despite being dealt a bad hand, was still solid to me. And I am a huge fan of the entire Creed franchise. And it started with Ryan Coogler in Creed. In fact, I don't even know if I have a channel if it wasn't for that movie, because Creed was my first official review. So there might not be Ace Avenue without Ryan Coogler. So hats off to you, sir. But pairing him once again with Michael B. Jordan, those two are phenomenal together. They are partners in crime, and it shows on the big screen. They work so well together. So my expectations were super high for this. Did it meet it? Let's see. I'm not only going to give Ryan Coogler his flowers, I'm going to throw a whole bouquet at him. I was very impressed by this movie. An original concept of a supernatural period piece that's a tribute to blues and the black community, that's cinema for the culture, and it just happens to have vampires in it. The writing, the storytelling, the in-depth storytelling, I should say, the perspective, the sense of community, the culture, the complexity, everything about this movie, it checked every single box that I am looking for in a film. Phenomenal direction, great writing, stellar cast. This knocked it out of the park. This is definitely a must-see movie. I was extremely invested in this movie from a storytelling standpoint. Considering that this takes place in a single day, the amount of history, mythos, and character development that they're able to fit in this without it feeling jam-packed and forced was very impressive. The story of the Smokestack siblings and Sammy, say that 5 times fast, was so captivating that I forgot vampires were in this movie. Following their journey as twin brothers, played by Michael B. Jordan in another dual role performance. I'll get more into his performance later on in the film. Them coming back to their hometown, trying to build something for the community, in a juke joint. To me, it wasn't just about them profiting from it. Of course, they were going to make a profit from it. But I grasped the concept of, in order to create something for the culture, you need to build community. And that's exactly what I felt like they were trying to do in this film. And Ryan Coogler does a great job at writing these characters and making them so interesting that I'm completely invested in this story, and it hasn't even gotten into the horror aspect yet. The different dichotomies incorporated in this film, whether it's rich versus poor, black versus white, good versus evil, just enhance the storytelling to a top tier level that I think can only be pulled off by Ryan Coogler. Now let me elaborate on that. The amount of care that this man has for the culture, the community, the cinema, and the creativity is like we haven't seen before. He is truly a generational talent. Cinema-wise, making this movie different aspect ratios is something that we really haven't seen before.
This is one of the widest formats you'll see a film projected on. Very rare to see a film projected in this format. The other format that we shot on was the IMAX film 15 perf format. And once you expose the image on that, you get a ratio of 1:4:3 to 1. So the film was shot with 2 different aspect ratios, and this is the first time ever that a film has been released combining these 2.
He is truly a master at his craft. Cinematically, this movie is stunning. Not only does it feel like it captures the 1930s, but it also feels very lived in, and it's cinematically beautiful. There are scenes in here that shouldn't work. There's a scene in particular at the juke joint where they're talking about the evolution of music, and you're getting to see it before your very eyes. And as I'm watching it, I'm thinking to myself, like, any other director probably couldn't pull this off. The attention to detail, the creativity that's in this one scene alone is award-winning. To be able to show the evolution of music throughout all the generations, that had to have been very, very difficult to do. But he pulled it off, and I only think Ryan Coogler could have pulled it off because of his direction and vision. Now let's talk about the performances. I think this might be the best performance we've gotten out of Michael B. Jordan. This is the 3rd dual role performance this year. Saw one in The Monkey, also in Mickey 17, but it was done at its best in this one. So Michael B. Jordan portrays the Smokestack brothers, Smoke and Stack, 2 brothers that are about their business, trying to form the juke joint in their hometown to be able to profit off of it. The way he's able to portray these characters are similar with a lot of differences at the same time too. On one hand, you got Smoke, who feels like the more serious, more menacing, more focused brother. Then you have his twin Stack, who's still serious, but a lot of lighthearted moments, very talkative, with the gift of gab. Kind of reminds me of somebody else I know that likes to talk a lot. He does a good job at making these twins menacing, charming, and all about their business.
They ain't no business. Twin.
My twin, man.
Twin.
Bring it in, brother.
Initially going into this, I didn't think this was going to be a believable performance. After watching The Monkey and Mickey 17, there were moments of those movies that kind of took me out of it, but not in this one. I was completely bought into the fact where after the first couple of minutes, I believed that they were 2 separate characters. And his performance is only amplified by the fact that Michael B. Jordan has that directorial experience.
Mike, you've had your directorial debut. You're a director now, right?
Yes, sir.
I want to know between the 2 of you, what's the collaborative dynamic like between you 2? 'Cause
He became more of like a lead blocker. Here's the thing that we haven't talked about, like that's very important. So we hired another actor named Percy Bell. He was our twin double. And the interesting thing was we hired Percy, and Michael would have to basically like direct Percy on what his performance was going to be on the other side. So when Mike flips over and does that side, you know.
So we kind of had to I had to premeditate what I was going to do already.
Yeah.
Smoke and Stack are made better by their connections with the side characters. A lot of emotional beats that really let you soak in the moment. Smoke's relationship with Annie, who's played by Wumi Musaku, gives you so many great intimate moments that really help you bring different layers to the Smoke character at the same time. Annie's performance in this was great. Such a great character. She definitely brought the spiritual aspect to this movie. And let's face it, if you've seen it without her, they would have been screwed. Now, Stack's relationship with Mary is very pivotal to the plot, portrayed by Haley Steinfeld, who does a great job and a very grown sexual performance like we've never seen her before. She's like a bridge that balances the realities of the segregated South. This is a woman that looks predominantly white, but due to the themes and racial identities of the one drop rule, she's able to find her place in the Black community. Let's talk about Delroy Lindo, who is one of the best actors of this time. He always gives 100%. His acting is top notch. Plays a character that has a lot of pain behind the surface, but through music is still able to see the beauty of life, and also has a ton of humorous moments throughout this entire film, and he is one of the standouts in this movie. All right, you want to know how great this movie is? This video is almost 10 minutes long to me saying this, And I haven't even talked much about the vampires. So let's talk about Remick, who was played by Jack O'Connell. Remick should go down as one of the greatest antagonists on the big screen. Now, on the surface, it seems like, typical white guy during the Jim Crow era, KKK ties, racism, that type of stuff. But Ryan Coogler wrote him with so many layers to his character. The similarities and symbolisms, because Ryan Coogler decided to make the vampire Irish instead of coming from Transylvania, is a reason why this antagonist feels that he can relate to our protagonist. There are a lot of similarities between the Irish community and the black community, being that both communities were stripped of their religion, stripped of who they really are, and it's on display in this very layered performance. He feels like he can relate, so therefore he can tempt the protagonist.
And you are? I am your way out.
There's a point in this film where he says, I know what it's like to be you guys. Mentions how the Christians took his father's land. So because he's been through this, he's trying to warn them by using temptation. And you can see through our protagonist that it is a very tempting proposition. The crazy thing about it is, just like how evil definitely tempts us in real life, some of the stuff he was saying came into fruition and impacted some of the main characters. And from his perspective, he thought he was right. Same thing how I love about the MCU, where they say they have villains with virtues. This is an example of that. And that, to me, makes for a great antagonist. So since we're on the topic of vampires, I'm going to say this. This movie actually does take a while to vampire. It's in the latter half of the film. But the one thing that I really loved about this was how they followed the rules of the horror genre. You got your sunlight, you got your garlic, you got the stake to the heart. And one of the ones that's one of my favorites that a lot of people don't know about, how vampires can't come in unless they're invited.
Please, come in. Close the door. Shit.
I just love how they were able to follow that vampire horror trope, and it added to how good this was. Okay, last but certainly not least, probably the most impressive part of this movie, the performance by Miles Caton in his acting debut. His first ever entry in IMDb is starring in a film with Michael B. Jordan, Delroy Lindo, Haley Steinfeld, directed by Ryan Coogler. Could you imagine that? And he's not overwhelmed at the least in this. He is able, with a star-studded cast, to be able to stand on his own and be the heart and soul of this movie. This kid's got a very bright future, and I really can't wait to see what more he brings to the table, along with the great singing voice. Like I said, being the heart and soul of this movie is such a breath of fresh air for this original film. Hats off to the kid, man. Like I said, he's got a very bright future, and yeah, he was phenomenal. Lastly, this has one of the best post-credit scenes. They use the mid-credit scene as a way to tie up the film, and it completes the story instead of trying to set something else. And for that, kudos. All right, I'm gonna say this. I wish that this movie wasn't marketed as a vampire movie. I fully understand the vampire aspect was a selling point. It's the part that puts butts in seats. But I was completely captivated before they even showed up because I was so invested in the storytelling, the writing, the character development, the relations with Smokestack, Sam, and the side characters. The vampires, to me, were just icing on top of the cake. But I've been hearing a lot of other people talk about they kind of expected something different from this, like more leaning into the horror aspect, when realistically it was a character-focused tale that just happened to have vampires in it. The reception I'm hearing from this is overwhelmingly positive, but from the certain people that have said that this movie is a little bit overrated, that seems to be their main complaint. The worst part about this movie is that it had to end. I'm just going to say what everybody else is saying. I was so invested in this movie that when it was time to wrap things up, I was leaving the theater wanting more. They could have made a whole nother hour of this, and I would have still been sitting there watching the entire thing. But overall, this movie was incredible. a cinematic masterpiece by one of the best directors in the game right now. A great performance by Michael B. Jordan on top of that, along with a great side characters, side cast that did a phenomenal job. I'm gonna have to see this movie again. I'm gonna have to check it out on IMAX to be able to see the storytelling from a different aspect ratio. This movie was truly a work of art. One of the best movies, probably the best movie so far of 2025. This is exactly the type of movie that Hollywood needs. Like I said earlier, this movie was cinema for the culture, and I hope you guys check it out. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe for your sports, movies, and more. Appreciate you guys. As always, thank you for tuning into the Ace Avenue. I am yours truly, the Ace. Adios.